I'm going to do a quick little intro on Catherine Joy, who is moderating, and then we'll get into it. So, Catherine Joy, originally all the way from Tasmania, Australia. Catherine is a composer, music producer, community leader and educator, and former president of the AWFC. She's received multiple awards and nominations, including Best Score for the doc Gold Balls, an ASCAP Composer Choice Award nomination for Naughty Books, and the David Rackskin Emerging Talent Award for Home is a Hotel. Catherine has also produced scoring sessions for acclaimed projects such as A24's Minari, Untold on Netflix, Hulu's Death and Other Details, HBO's Edge of the Earth, and most recently, the new J.J. Abrams Apple TV series Presumed Innocent. Catherine is the founder and CEO of Joy Music House, a full-service score production company. She was the president, I already said this, but I'm going to say it again because I added that ad lib. She was the president of the Alliance for Women Film Composers from 2021 to 2023, thank you, and now serves on the advisory board. And she's an adjunct faculty for the NYU Steinhardt Screen Scoring Masters Program. Thank you so much for everything and also for being here today, Catherine.
Thanks for having me. It's so good to be on these wonderful insight sessions. And Connor, thank you for everything you're doing as a board member. You're killing it. We appreciate you. I am super excited to be here with Chanda Dancy, brilliant composer, dear friend. And one reason I wanted to moderate this is just because we don't get to see each other very much. So it was like, perfect. I get to stare at you for an hour and hear your story.
the elusive Chanda.
Yeah, find every excuse we can get. So let me tell you guys a little bit about Chanda Dancy. Texan raised, Chanda Dancy started composing orchestral works at the age of 12. She's been described as a phenomenal composer from Ted Chung in Featured Filmmakers, and quickly gaining recognition as a foremost Black American contemporary composer from the great Anthony Panther, who's the conductor of the San Bernardino Symphony. That's really hard to say in the morning. Her works are described as emotionally penetrating and rich. An alumnus of the USC Film Scoring Program and the Sundance Composers Lab, Chanda is both an accomplished film and TV composer with over 18 years of experience and an emerging classical concert composer. Arts Boston named her one of 10 contemporary Black composers you should know. She is known for her work on the Sundance Award-winning doc Aftershock and the hit Netflix TV original The Defeated, the Korean-era epic Devotion, the Whitney Houston biopic I Want to Dance with Somebody, directed by Casey Lemons, and Taylor Sheridan's TV drama Lawmen Bass Reeves. In 2023, Chanda was shortlisted by the Academy for Motion Pictures for Best Original Score for her work on Sony Pictures' Devotion, and later received an SCL Award nomination for her main title theme to Lawmen Bass Reeves. So please welcome Chanda Dancy, everyone.
Yay!
And yay!
Thank you.
The crowd goes wild in his very quiet Zoom way.
Oh yeah, we got one applause. Yay, thank you.
So Emily is keeping us cheering today. Thank you, Emily. And today is really cool because you've done a number of shows in addition to movies, and today we're going to be talking about crafting a compelling main title theme, which I think is such an exciting subject matter. But before we dive into that, could we just hear a little bit about your journey as a composer and what got you to being shortlisted for the Oscars?
Oh my gosh. A whole lot of suffering. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's just been like a really long journey of just kind of going it on my own, I would say. So after graduating from the USC film scoring program, I had the opportunity to maybe be like a composer's assistant or things like that, because there was a great, pipeline for that. But for some reason, I decided to not be smart and do that, but to just I just created my own relationships with a whole lot of student filmmakers. And I did a lot of student films. Like so many short student films, so many thesis films from all of the schools, UCLA, Cal Arts, USC, of course, NYU, everything, anything. And so just very slowly just made a career piece by piece, brick by brick. And so it was essentially just working on those films. And then inevitably, like maybe an editor on that film, they have a film that they've directed. And so they're like, we love the music on this film that we edited. Can you do the music for my film? And I'm like, yeah. So it was just one after another of that. And then finally, somebody else started paying attention who wasn't within that world. Suddenly I would get calls from producers that were doing like TV movies. Like, for example, I did like a whole bunch of Lifetime like thrillers. And that was, pretty much by someone just hearing some music that I put on Spotify that I self-published. Wow. And so they were like, yeah, you should do this thriller. Like, are you interested? I'm like, yeah. And so that created like a whole different level. Because finally, that's things that my parents could actually watch. They could actually see that I'm doing something like, oh, it's on the TV. Chanda's actually a film composer. What she said, all these years. So, yeah, and then going from there, just very slowly getting more into the studio world. And really my first foray into the studio world was The Defeated, the TV show that we'll talk about briefly today. Doing the main title sequence for that film actually got me hired to do the whole show. And then from there, it was just building blocks. After Defeated came Devotion, and then came Aftershock, and then came Whitney Houston, and then came Bass Reeves, and then came, Zoe Kravitz's movie, which is coming out in August 23rd, everybody. So go out and check it out. It's going to be awesome. But
awesome.
So
is it going to be in theatrically released?
In theaters? Yeah, everywhere. Yeah, awesome. August 23rd.
Everyone go see that. Get out there.
So, I mean, that's the short of it. That's the main gist. The main gist.
I think that's so exciting because I feel like often when I talk to younger composers, they think the only path is to be an assistant to someone. And it's also something I didn't do because when I started in film scoring, I was in my 30s, and that just was being assistant is not really a 30s game.
Yeah.
And this, I think this is a lot more of a bolder approach to kind of, as you said, go your own road and kind of build your own path. But I'm so excited for you to share that because I think it's a really exciting way forward.
Yeah. And I think, sorry, like
no, please.
I really, really, really wholeheartedly agree with you. Like the sentiment, like this is going the assistant route isn't the end all be all. Like you would think, I mean, yeah, you definitely see some, assistants to composers that break out, especially like the Hans Zimmer group, and then they get big things. But that's not the only path. And as a matter of fact, I feel like for me personally, and maybe other people might resonate with this, I was able to build myself as my own voice and my own person, just by experimenting on my own. And I learned through low stakes student films. And so I was able to kind of like craft my musical personality a very long time ago on indie films. So by the time the opportunity to do a studio work with the deadlines and the high pressure and things like that, I didn't have to second guess myself at all. I knew exactly what I would do and it just came out. And then, and also by the time I got that big opportunity, I was a lot more just confident in just being a composer, being an artist, and also being a business person. Because I mean, there's a whole other thing where I learned how to like manage people and stuff like that. I worked at this company and I was like a manager for like 60 people or whatever, doing like DVD QC for movies, like, and working with Warner Brothers and things like that, but not from the composer side, but from the corporate side. So I learned like a lot about the corporate way of doing things, or so, nothing was a surprise once the opportunity came. And I really,
so even when you had to do those day jobs to kind of supplement, they still kind of fed into becoming a composer. Because becoming I feel like, and I see example after example of this, I feel like it's more than just about the music. It really is the whole field. Being a business person,
being very good with people, managing people.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a team that you work with, and you have a whole orchestra of people that you work with, and there's a whole thing, a whole vibe of being able to work well in those environments. And especially, when you're working on a studio film, the pressure is very, very high. You have to be on it. And, of course, mistakes happen. But one thing that I learned through the corporate world is, you just solve it on the fly,
exactly.
Get it done. And what matters is being confident and making people feel good to be around you, to be essentially led by you, because you are like the leader of your music department. And so I highly advise, if you don't want to, do like I did, get a day job and like work in corporate America, there's business courses, there's things that, you can hone your skills of just being a people managing person and a people person. So
yeah, totally. And I think one thing, I know we do, but I think one thing you also did kind of from the beginning was build your team, just like you've found good people along the way that you're still working with today.
Exactly. From orchestrators to additional music composers to having you help me out with, having on sessions, orchestrating and printing and, there's all sorts of things. And so, it just took a lot of good years of making friends. That's what I like to think of it as. It's not necessarily like so robotic, like, oh, I meet this person and then I meet this person and then we get together. It's like, no, we just all chill. We have a drink if that's what you do. We go on hikes together. Like it's truly a community that you want to build. And I feel like I've done a great job.
You have.
People like Catherine on my team and people like Chandler and Thomas at White Bear and my awesome agent who, is the same. We have the same agent, everyone.
We have the same agent.
Yes. Kevin is awesome.
Shout out to Kevin Korn.
So that's
awesome. Well, you and I could talk about everything related to film scoring, but when we get micro, we're gonna dive into the world of main title themes. So I'm going to let you take it away because we're going to be talking about, the techniques you've used on these, on the Defeated and Lawmen and talk about how to distill the feel of the show in that really important opening sequence. So I'm going to let you take it away and I will continually interrupt you with questions.
Awesome. Do you guys mind if I do a quick screen share so we can just go through Let's
get it. And if you guys have questions and you don't feel comfortable speaking up, feel free to put them in the chat. I may still call on you so we can hear your wonderful voices, but we'd love to hear your questions.
Yeah. So just getting into like the technical bones of like main title theme composition. And one reason why this is so close to my heart is I feel like if you're able to craft a banger main title, that's more likely than not going to for sure get you the gig if you haven't been officially hired for the gig yet. And so I find that, so for example, we'll talk about a little bit about the Defeated. And as far as like distilling the feel of the show. So the Defeated is a show that was based upon a story that's based on World War II, post-World War II Berlin. And as you can see, I don't know if you guys can see this picture of awesome Nina Haas in the rubble of Berlin. So just from this image alone, you can see that this is going to be a grand scale post-war drama with a bit of action. And so this character here, Elsie, she is one of the few police officers in Berlin trying to keep the peace after the whole city is just, been reduced to rubble. People are starving. You can see people in the background. They're in rags. They don't look well. There's not enough food. There's people, women are getting assaulted. And so she's essentially a superhero who gets, let's see, let's pull up. So she's partnered with this guy, Taylor Kitsch, is actually the character Max. So Max is from Brooklyn, New York. And so he's been assigned to come and help Berlin to build up their police force to get order once again. And so the producers definitely wanted something that's a darker tone, but something that also gives you like that harkens to World War II kind of. When you think of like armies, we think of like the propaganda choir. That's what I call it. Something that's very rousing, almost like a hymn. There's and then you also have like spy elements, because there's a lot of spying and twists and turns and things like that. So, how do you distill all of that into a main title sequence that essentially describes that world? And so I would say after a couple of tries, I came up with this. So let's play this. So from all of those words that I described, somehow, it's important to distill those words, that dramatic point of view in the music. And so that's step one. Just trying to, so what I did is, I just did a mock-up definitely, and just, it had to be orchestral for sure, because of the time period, but also just hearkening to that whole, like a little bit slick spy, a little dark, a little twisty turny. There's a bit of like synthesizers, and then you've got like this drum beat that kind of gives it like this hipness to it, almost like James Bond. So it's like post World War II Berlin James Bond. So, and that is essentially what the show is. So, and that main title sequence got me hired for the show because that was my demo for the producers. Essentially, like, do we want to work with her? Can she distill this? What, these words that we said. And so, yeah, that was the start of the journey for that. So,
it was also so cool how you start and end with that texture that really sets the vibe before this glorious melody comes in, and then the reiteration of the melody. I mean, I know you're about to talk about the form
we
now,
will talk
but it's
about
just
that. Yes.
it's so beautiful how it grows. And
thank you.
And slightly unexpected. Yeah.
I feel like that's part of the secret sauce, because I did the same kind of thing with Lawmen Bass Reeves. So for Lawmen Bass Reeves,
so good.
When we're going into distilling the feel of the show. So when I first created this piece, actually the audio that you just heard, that was the demo. That was not with the orchestra. That was the mock-up. And that was what I wrote a year before they started shooting. And
that's mock-up goals right there.
Yeah, there was no script. Yeah, there was no script. There was nothing. All I had was this picture of Bass Reeves, of the real Bass Reeves. Like, I didn't even know how David Oyelowo would look, et cetera. So there was nothing to go off of except for, this person, and essentially just staring at his picture. I mean, he has like the most soulful eyes, and like you can see how he has so much pride. He just looks so upstanding. And then you read about his story, and he is so upstanding, just, a hero of justice at a time that was extremely difficult to keep law and order. So this was post-Civil War. For some reason, I'm kind of pigeonholed with shows where post-war heroes keeping the law. But anyway, so here's Bass Reeves after the Civil War, and he's essentially, the person who's just holding it down in the Oklahoma Territory. And he was a bridge between peoples. Here's like another photo of him with his colleagues. Here he is on the left. And you see all of these guys who, you know, work so hard to keep order, protecting people of all races, all creeds. Bass Reeves, you know, he spoke the local Indian dialects, Native American dialects. He, you know, was just a bridge between everyone at this time. And so the piece had to essentially reflect that. The pride of being an upstanding person, you know? And so the music supervisor, Andrea von Forster, amazing, amazing music supervisor. She's so awesome. She did give me a few kind of like a little arrow to point the way. Like, so Taylor Sheridan, he loves Eastern European orchestral music, you know, Mendelssohn, Bartok, Dvorak. And I was like, oh my gosh, you mean those guys that I grew up playing like in orchestras, like on my violin? I'm originally a violinist, so I played all of those orchestras and all of those symphonies. And so clearly Dvorak New World Symphony lives kind of in my soul. And so it was,
and he was such a folk song, like he pulled from the folk songs.
Exactly. And so, you know, New World Symphony specifically pulled from Eastern European orchestral writing with Negro spirituals with Native American influence. And so
crazy. This
main title sequence essentially is inspired by that. You know, even though all I have are old pictures and kind of like this description of the epic grand scale of how we want it to be. And yeah, so, you know, if you listen to that, well, let's pull up the video. Thank you. So yeah, so that demo that I played you the first time, the first audio, was what got me hired for the show. I had never met Taylor Sheridan. I had only met Andrea. And when she passed along the demo to him, he literally called me on my cell phone. So I really think that there's something very important when being able to nail this this main title sequence, because, you know, it just distills the whole show. When you hear it, you just think about the whole show and the characters. And so, you know,
and using this as a pitching tool, using this to land the gig is just incredible tool.
Yeah. So, you know, and the beauty about doing a main title sequence like this is you don't need picture, you don't need script. Just a short conversation, and you're allowed to be a musician. You're allowed to be a composer in and of itself, because you won't have a picture to, you know, to compose to. You can just literally be a composer. Okay, I'm going to do like mini song form, you know, you can use your music theory and things like that. And it's very freeing. And so I think that actually comes across when it's presented. You know, it sounds authentic. You know, it doesn't sound like you're it doesn't sound like you're trying to fake something or trying to make something work with picture to hit the right spot. No, it's just music that lives and breathes on its own. And that clearly affects people, you know, like long before we had music to picture, we just had music. And it's something that, it's, you know, it's
so true,
right? So I think that, you know, you can get a lot of success if you start, you know, if you're trying to do a pitch, and if you start from that standpoint, like, I just want to stir the soul based upon the conversation that we had. So that's distilling the feel of the show. So next thing that's clearly important, singable motif. And I say singable because it, you know, like, for example, Lawmen, Bass Reeves, pretty easy to sing. Da 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 da. So people, you know, they're just like, you know, in their bathroom, like, you know, looking on their phone and singing this singable theme. You know, it sounds very much like something that, maybe you can sing at church, or maybe you can sing in
Yeah.
choir, or, little kids can sing it, old people can sing it, everyone, animals love it. So my cat's like meowing right now. So, a singable motif. And like I say, the best way in my experience to achieve that is just stepping away from my instruments, stepping away from the violin, stepping away from the piano, especially stepping away from the piano, because the piano can fool you. And just listening to an idea that forms in my head and sing it myself. And so I sing it into my iPhone. And then taking that, whatever I just sang, pulling it into Pro Tools, and then giving it the bass line and then the inner harmony. And that's literally it. So we'll talk about Bass Reeves more so for this part. So, again, a melody that's not too complicated. It feels like the character's point of view is, it sounds like something Bass Reeves might hum himself, it's a little old timey. And so again, I think the best way is like, I know not everybody's a singer, but it's okay. Nobody's going to be listening to your singing. Only you are. So it's just, it's better. It's a better way to get your idea straight from your brain to the DAW, instead of being influenced by your piano fingers or your violin.
Absolutely.
Hello.
I think developing the ability to compose in your head, is such a valuable skill.
I think so, because I don't know about you, but I feel like ideas that are in my head are way better than if I'm trying to, just hitting notes on the keyboard, just kind of like trying to feel it. If I just step away in silence, go somewhere away from the instruments and just kind of just close my eyes, more often than not, a radio starts playing, and those ideas are like way better than, what you would have played on piano or whatever instrument. So try that, I would say, for, anyone listening. And just making the pipeline from your brain to the DAW much shorter and more efficient will get you some cool ideas, I think. So
absolutely.
So that's a singable motif. And then motif. Sound like Mike Tyson. But anyway, you guys, I'm a little bit goofy if you haven't noticed. Okay, I like to have fun. I like to laugh. I'm a bright, cheery person. So compositional form. So typically, I find that if you have an intro, just like for the Defeated, if you remember how we started and you had like this little puzzle pieces of bling, 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 and that was like the harp and celeste and things. You kind of want to have this intro that gets you psyched and gets you ready to go on the journey. It's essentially like being in the chair, like on the roller coaster ride before you actually, go up and like do it. It's the intro to the adventure. And then the body. So you have the body. And so for the Defeated didn't necessarily follow song form. It was just the repetition of the motif 3 times. And each time the motif went up in drama. So it started with the solo cello, and then it came with just the strings. And then by the time the third iteration is like the full orchestra, all the brass, all the percussion, everybody, and it's just very stately. So, and then after that body, you go back to the outro, which, simmers you down essentially and gets you ready for the show itself. So that same kind of thing happened with Lawmen Bass Reeves. You had the introduction with the violin doing arpeggios, and then we're ready. Da, 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 da. And this particular theme, I actually did use kind of a mini song form. So the first part of it, the A section, is the da 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 da. That's the A section. B section. Da, 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 da. That's B section. And then going back to A prime. Da, 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 and then you have your outro. So it like that arc for forever, for centuries and centuries, has clearly been a very, very effective tool for just getting people into the song, understanding where the song is going to go, and being, and then being brought back down properly and a proper resolution. And because most everything we hear is based upon Western classical compositional forms. We're so used to that, and it's easy for that to become an earworm. So if you're using, if you're doing your own main title sequence, consider using mini song form as your body of your piece, and however way you want to achieve that, it's wonderful. That's the grand thing about it. And then also for typically the length, you want to just do something that's around 60 seconds. Bass Reeves essentially wound up being 1 minute and 13 seconds, but it's easier. You're not going to tax anybody. You get in, you get out, you make your statement, and it also I think makes people want to just replay it, because it's better than having a 3 minute something. People have a tendency to be a little exhausted at the end, and they might not listen to that whole 3 minutes again. But if you got a 60-second banger, most likely they're going to play it over and over and over. And so, and the reason why I say this is because I literally have the data to show that Lawmen Bass Reeves was played over and over and over, that demo. Because Real Crafter, here's my Real Crafter plug. Real Crafter is amazing.
Yes.
And it gives you data. It shows you IP addresses that open your reel, and actually shows you how many times and for how many seconds and how long someone engages with a single track. And I mean, that track was just played over and over and over and over. And so I kind of had a good feeling that I might be hired for the gig, just because you can just see when people just love something. And again, I think it was because it was just very concise, compact, done. And so yeah, think of that for when you're pitching.
And this was when you sent this pitch, did you just send this, or were there other cues below it and you led with that?
Yeah, I sent this, and then I sent another cue that was not for main titles. It was just for just incidental.
This is me
kind of thing. Yeah. And I can play that for you quickly, but it was also just 1 minute long, so
great.
So that was also in addition to the main title sequence. So you got a little flavor, you got the grand epic flavor, and then you got more introspective flavor. So I think those things combined for sure helped in getting the gig. And again, that was the demo. Sorry, that was the MIDI mock-up.
Again, mock-up goals. So
yes. Yeah.
So let's just jump back into the
because we're running out of time. Okay. I'll be quick.
Sidetracking you.
Yes, but it's okay. It's all good. So just repeating the main motif, clearly, that's a very important thing. So in the Defeated, you hear the main motif 3 times in a row. Sticks in your head when you hear it over and over. For Lawmen Bass Reeves, you do hear that the A section of the motif, you do hear that 3 times. So in the very beginning, so you have it in the main body, and as ABA, and then in the outro, I did a repeat of it again. So it was 3 times that you heard da 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 da. And I would say, and this is not just my opinion, I actually learned this from the producer on The Defeated. So the producer on The Defeated was a pretty amazing person who has worked with some pretty amazing composers, including Michael Giacchino, John Williams, on his projects that he produced, and he interacted with them. And so he gave me the advice of, when you're doing a main title sequence, repeat the main title 3 times, repeat that idea 3 times. And he just kept saying 3 times, and it sticks in people's heads. And I was like, okay, sure, maybe, whatever, and but, after like just absorbing that. And then, so when I did The Defeated, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can understand, like, yeah, that 3 times really solidified it for you. Like people, really latched onto that. And so just remembering that I did the same thing for Bass Reeves. And that's why I feel that, people really resonated with the main title for Bass Reeves, because you hear it, the A motif 3 times, and it's catchy, it's singable. So again, when you're doing your own composition, consider, repeating the main motif 3 times. And that doesn't mean like just copy and paste. I mean, you want to treat each time, each iteration slightly different, and you want growth, or some sort of arc within the composition itself.
And with that piece you just played us, it was cool how at the end of it, in the outro, you hear that motif again.
Exactly.
In a different key, in a different, like starting from a different note launching point, but it's still like the same hook. Yeah,
exactly. It was the A motif, dun 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 dun. And you hear it in the oboe, solo oboe, you hear it in the cymbalum at the end, and you hear it all throughout the show. And so, very, very important, repeating your main motif. So, and this is the last bit that we're talking about, that we'll talk today, is enhancing the orchestration and mixing. So one thing that I love to do, and I think one reason why my mock-ups sound pretty good is I never just do orchestral instruments. There's always synthesizers in there. So all of those mock-ups had, I use Omnisphere for like this. It's called sweetening. I'm sure you've heard, many people have heard this. So this is not, anything new, but you're sweetening the sound of the orchestral instruments. So it sounds fuller. It sounds like it has this halo or this fatness to it. And so I use two types of synthesizers. They're the one of them is Apache and Omnisphere that I use. That's kind of just like glass bowls, and that's where you use your inner harmonies glow underneath the orchestra. And then you also want to use like a bass, some sort of like sine wave for your bass, and so for sub bass, and putting a sub bass synthesizer underneath your actual basses, your orchestral basses, makes them sound very fat. So when you're listening to this on like a 5/1 setup or whatever, and that sub bass hits your sub, people are like, whoa, it's so epic.
Nice and fat. I love it.
Oh, you guys, like I have like give me a second, like my APC backup is like, can you hear that beat? Yeah.
We have a great question from Ravita that we'll get to in a second, and great, Johnny just put a question in there. We will be getting to questions in a sec, so if you want to put them in the chat, we will definitely get to them.
And last but not least, you definitely want to use an amazing mixer. I use Alvin Wee. Alvin is amazing. Working with him, we are able to make sure that we have mixes that sound good on a cell phone or an iPad, in addition to a 5/1 setup. So if it sounds good on someone's iPad or their cell phone, because most likely they're probably going to be watching this show on an iPad. And so you want to make sure that your mix sounds good in that as well. And
did you use Alvin when you were pitching, when you did the mock-up?
Yes, good. I did. So for, let's see, not for The Defeated, but for Lawmen, Bass Reeves, I did have him like just do a quick little,
a quick pass.
Yes. Nothing too fancy. Sorry, does that beep like really, really loud? If I push the button, it's gonna like turn off everything and then I'm gonna go dark. So
Right.
so we'll have
No,
to
I
put
think
up with it for a second.
it's okay. It's just blending with your voice a bit, so it's totally
Okay, cool.
fine. But yeah,
Okay.
Emily and I had the same question on that. Jinx, Emily. Going back to Ravita's question, just great question. How long did it take you to compose the main title and the mock-up? So how long did it take you to come up with the idea and then to mock it up totally?
Approximately 24 hours. It was very, very, very quick. Again, because I didn't second guess myself. Like it was like I went into my little dark corner. I listened to what came into my head when, for Bass Reeves, I was staring at his picture of the actual Bass Reeves, and I went into a corner and literally came into my head. I didn't like play it on any instrument or anything like that. Sang it into my iPhone, put it into Pro Tools, and just using the piano patch, just orchestrated it. So I have a violin, so I use just the regular Bosendorfer or whatever from East West Opus, and then I just have a violin track, violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, bass, brass, winds, and then I literally use the pen tool in Pro Tools instead of playing it at all. It's like just writing in the notes, literally based upon what I recorded in my iPhone, and then going from there, taking the piano part and then putting it into my, I always have a template. So my orchestral template was already set up. I just pulled the MIDI data from the piano line and then boop, put it into the violin lines. And then I did all of my automation and then, you have to like change the tempos and things like that. So it sounds like it breathes and things like that. It really did take a day. So, yeah.
Which, I mean, when we're talking about 1 minute of music, that's actually, that's quite a bit of time to sync into one track, but it gives it the love it needs. I would say, I love, this idea of writing in your head is something that really transformed my composing. I find for me, when I hear something in my head, I have to play it over and over again. And sometimes I won't even sing it. I will write it, because sometimes if you have something in your head and you sing it wrong, it can tape over what's in your head and then it's gone. Have you had that experience?
Yes. So, but for me, the way to solve that is just having it has to be in my iPhone, like spur of the moment. It can't be like, oh, I thought of it and then I'm going to go get my iPhone. My iPhone's already up. It's already ready. And I'm just kind of just going, and then it just comes out the very first time. Because that very first time is most of the time that's the magic. And if you if you rethink it, then your mind gets into it and then starts messing with it, and then it's not as good. So just keep your iPhone on record when you're in your dark corner, and then whatever comes out, that's the stuff.
I love that. Johnny, one of our wonderful AWFC allies, he has a great question here. Do you prefer to leave themes unresolved with a tale to lead into picture, or do you close them out?
Absolutely resolve it. And the reason why I say this is because I definitely tried one version of I would say just a different cue, and tried to leave it unresolved. And it was the producer from The Defeated that really kind of took me under his wing and mentored me. He was like, "Why didn't you resolve it?" It annoys the audience. They need that landing. Just give them the landing, and then they'll be ready to ingest the next bit. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So psychologically, I think there might be something to that. So, and especially if you're doing a pitch, for sure, give them a landing. For sure, okay. They have to come down and to be able to exhale.
Right. I guess it's something that, once you're in the show, because sometimes they do have variations on the theme, if it's an epic episode or something. So something you can mess with once you have the gig. But yeah,
absolutely. But not for the pitch and not for the main title.
Pitch. I love that. Other questions? Um, yeah, I mean, I guess, like when you're doing these pitches, so we described with bass lawman with Lawmen, you sent just 2 tracks, is that right? Or
Yeah, it was.
were there more?
So for an actual pitch for the show itself, it was just those 2 tracks. But I did include other things that were for other films that were kind of like in the same vein. But you can't really like, depend on stuff like that. It was for like a different show or a different film, and like, and it didn't have every element that Andrea and I had like talked about that Taylor is looking for. So it was important to do those two, um, you know, two tailored tracks for Taylor.
Two tailored. So right, yeah. So the second track, I mean, I think it's probably obvious to everyone else, but the second track you also composed specifically for the series.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and that was at the, it was probably a couple of days later after writing the main title that I did that second track. So again, this was well before there was a script, before there was any picture, before there was anything. And so again, it was just based upon that the main motif from the main title, and just giving a different variation of it, making sure that it was in the universe of the orchestral style that Taylor was looking for. That was definitely like a Bartok, a Hungarian dance kind of thing. So this one. So it was. I was sure to try and like have give Taylor different tastes of the main motif.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you think it's good to like practice this skill by maybe like creating a title sequence for, I don't know, a book series you love, or something
Yes,
like that?
I am all about practice. My whole life, I just practice. Practice is like my favorite word. And I tell my son this for everything: practice being a big boy, practice not spilling things, so it's like, mama has to practice her, composing. And so definitely, and really, that's where, the whole like composing for like student films and composing for smaller projects, composing for low stakes things, that's where it really, really comes in to be able to like hone this craft. You can definitely compose some things on your own, but it's important to get the feedback from someone outside of you. Like my mom thinks everything I write is beautiful, but I can't trust her. I need to like, hear like somebody hear from someone who's a little harsh, so and I definitely practice in that way. I'll create something and then let someone who maybe my frenemy, I don't know, let them listen, because they'll be honest. So,
I can't even imagine you having frenemies. This is not possible.
That's frenemy. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea. I don't think, but I try not to think about that. But yeah, really just, someone that is going to be honest. Yeah. And, and also maybe someone who's not a composer, or someone who doesn't know anything about music, because that's what your audience is mostly, they just want to be moved. And so, everyone has a soul. So just, when you practice, just try it out on different people and see how it affects them. Then when they describe to you what you were thinking, then that you did your job right. Even without you giving them any sort of clue of what your motivation was in writing this piece. Literally just present it to them like, hey, can you listen to this? What do you think? And then they're like, oh my gosh, it reminds me of like rolling fields of the prairies. I'm like, all right, cool. We're, you're good. So
amazing. Well, Chanda, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all this. And thank you all for coming, and definitely tell your friends this was recorded, so we'll be available on the AWFC website for our members. And I think this is such an important thing for everyone to learn about. And Chanda, I really appreciate you not only sharing some of your story, but really just diving into the skills that we need to have as composers, and this specific scenario was super helpful. So if you're not a member of the AWFC already, please join up. And Chanda, I hope we see more from you.
For sure. Me too.
Can you remind us again of your stuff that's coming out this year so we can check it out?
Yes. So coming up August 23rd, we have Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut. It's called Blink Twice, and it is a banging thriller with lots of twists. And that trailer did not tell you anything. So ha ha ha. Come out and watch it. Yeah, and also Lawmen Bass Reeves is currently on Paramount Plus, all 8 episodes. The Defeated is on Netflix, all 8 episodes. So yeah, if you would like, go ahead and give a look and a listen.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Connor, for hosting. And we'll see you all soon. Cheers.